Welcome to the Small Business Breakthroughs podcast, where each week we are interviewing multiple different guests that are small businesses themselves, supporting the small business community because we're all about small business here. We want to support the community that needs all the different efforts. And we have found a staple who took a risk right before the pandemic, went out on his own and decided to start his own digital marketing agency and start working with businesses and doing B2B efforts. And Joshua Pink is joining us from J Pink Marketing. He's the founder. And Joshua, what was it like? Tell me a little bit about the business. You started to create the business, and all of a sudden, you're just a few months before the shutdown. Like you were fall of 2019. Here comes the winter of 2020, and boom, what was that like for you? Tell me, so first off, start off with what your business is, and then what was it like to go through that significant event?
Mm. Yeah, well, it was pretty scary. I feel like this is almost a counseling session for me. Um, well, yeah, so I had worked for a couple of agencies, decided to set out on my own, and which I did towards the end of 2019, and just managed to get a couple of clients going who said they would like to be supported with digital marketing, which is what I do. So marketing, but just within the digital sphere. And by the end of 2019, I had four clients. Um, and then I think did COVID sort of begin to get heavy around February, March, the following year. And it was a pretty hairy experience. And I was worried I'd lose everything and just have to ride it out with real financial consequences. But fortunately, I had a couple of clients who were quite big enough that they were able to ride COVID out and keep me on board. I had a couple of clients who just had to let me go. They were smaller clients, and I completely understand the situation and that they needed to do it. But I had a couple of larger clients, um, yeah, who I suppose were just big enough that my little digital marketing monthly fee was enough for it to stay in place. Um, and I suppose when COVID struck, no one knew how long it would go on for. I wonder whether if people had known how long it would go on for, whether I'd have stayed with them. But maybe, it was well, we can keep this guy on for a few months more. Maybe that was something to do with it. But I feel hugely lucky to have been able to set up my own business and luckier still that I survived COVID and didn't have to start afresh.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're 5 years past that mark now. You've been growing the
Hmm.
business. You're continuing to persevere and go. Tell me a little bit about what has been your proudest moment over the last 5 years, and that have really led to the decision of jumping out on your own.
Well, I suppose the proudest thing is just setting up my own company, which I realize is, day one, but across that 5 year stretch, it's still, a thing that I wake up sometimes and find hard to believe. And I sort of want to take this moment just to, give a shout out for becoming a freelancer. For anyone who is working for a digital marketing agency as an account manager or a content creator, I would highly recommend, if it's at all possible and if it's something you'd like to do, to give it a chance, to have a go at stepping out. Because I actually found it surprisingly easy to get my own business off the ground. It was something that I was putting off and thought would never get off the ground. But it's an amazing story. But the very first client I ever reached out to became a client, or the very first business I ever called and said, "Hi, my name's Josh. I'm venturing out as a digital marketing consultant. Wondered if I could support you." They became a client, which was an incredible boost to my confidence. It took a few months from that initial call and asking to speak to the owner of the company to them coming on board. Um, but yeah, it happened, and in the space of a couple of months, I spoke to 150 fairly local businesses. So I'm based in Southampton, Hampshire. I don't know the total population of Hampshire, but this is the UK, so it's not absolutely huge. I spoke to 150 businesses, and four of them by Christmas, so a few months down the line, were clients who I was invoicing and doing work for. So um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. So talk.
I hope that encourages anyone that is daring to think, why do I have a go at doing this myself?
Absolutely and totally encouraging on that side. I was just chatting this morning on Instagram with um, a somebody in another marketing agency, digital marketer, who is 2 weeks into their journey, and they, we've been casually chatting back and forth. They started following me, but that is encouraging. So for those that are or have made that, they've made that leap. They're like this guy. They're 2 weeks into it. And you're talking about how, you've got a quick paying client, but it actually took 3 to 4 months. And
Mm.
you only had about a 3% success rate in when you reached out to 150 people and you only got 4 people to sign up. That speaks volumes to the amount of effort that people sometimes don't realize that it takes. But sometimes, and it's that first that first sale is always right on the other side of one phone call, but that one phone call could be 149 in. Hey, real quick, did you know that most small businesses don't actually achieve their breakthrough? And it's not because you don't care. It's all because you're trying to do it alone. That's why I created the Momentum Community, is to help you change that. I want to see you achieve the breakthrough that you've been waiting for. It's where we committed entrepreneurs come and get focused, get accountable, and finally build a business and life that you are meant for. If you want to learn more, click the link in the description below and enjoy the rest of the episode. So, talk a little bit about what was going through your mind as you were doing those reach outs, and you're going through the first 4 months, if you can remember back that far, of like, okay, I got one. It was that energy to be able to get multiple more.
Yes, well, yeah, I spent that first few months thinking this is probably something I need to get out my system, and I honestly expected it to fail, but thought people tend to say you regret the things you don't try, not the things you do. So thought I'll at least give this a go. Um, and yeah, I mean, having your first client come on board is incredibly exciting. If you're lucky, that might be a salary there. I think my first couple of clients, they weren't huge clients, so I needed more. So I was still in a sort of phase where, I was starting to get excited, but eventually I had a couple of bigger clients come on board. Yeah, I'm suddenly earning more than I've ever done before in my life, by quite a significant amount. Um, so yeah, if you're lucky, I think that approach of I might be one call away from a life-changing sale, maybe that will work for you. I don't know how long I would have kept it up without getting anywhere and thinking, okay, maybe this isn't the right time. But as I said, well, I found it. I was amazed at how easy it was. I was terrified when I first started to speak to people, to call up business owners and say, would you like this? I think once in the whole 5 years that I've been doing this now, I've upset someone who's slammed the phone down in frustration because didn't appreciate the call. The vast majority of business owners or senior members of a team are very happy to talk. Some companies, it's usually profits. There'll be a gatekeeper that can be a bit hard to get to, but a lot of companies, a lot of SMEs, you can speak to the owner of the company quite easily, and 99.9% I find anyway of business owners completely understand marketing. So you don't even have to sell your services. That's been my experience anyway. People have known exactly why they need what I do, and if you call enough people, you'll just catch those few people at the right time that they were about to start looking, and you've got a match.
Yeah, that's
And
that is very good point inside of there. When you are talking with everybody and you're going through talk a little bit about your business and how it differentiates itself from other digital marketing agencies out there.
yeah, well, my unique selling point is that I'm like a one-man agency or a one-man army. Um, and that doesn't sound like a good selling point to everyone. Sometimes there'll be, doubts around whether I'm capable of doing the equivalent of what an agency would do. But for the businesses that gave me a chance, I was able to prove to them that I can. Now I've got case studies that I can direct people to, showing them that I can. And I think the big selling points of that, if you've been in an agency and been there long enough that you know how to do PPC, you can create graphics, you can do content. Maybe you've got to equip yourself. I had to take myself through a bit of a PPC learning journey because I'd been more focused on content in the agencies I was at. Um, but if you bring all that together, you can sell efficiency to people, because my experience of clients working with agencies when I was a team in an agency is that by comparison, they're bombarded with emails from different people, different meetings. I just have one meeting a month with my clients, just one meeting, which is usually half an hour or less, where we'll negotiate what topics we're going to cover that month. I'll then produce all of that, send it off to them in a nice sort of calendar format that they can consume, sign off, and that's it. And most of my clients I never hear from. My inbox is unbelievable. You would not believe, anyone that's worked in an agency wouldn't believe that if you can do things yourself, do the services you want, get things just right. I honestly sometimes um, I won't get an email for a good few days from it. I've got 10 clients now. I've got 10
Yep.
clients. Um, and they're so well trained. Not that I wouldn't, I'll sometimes get a random email and be asked to do something, other than what I'd normally do. I'll be very happy to answer them. But because of what I do is quite specific, I'm completely unhassled by my clients. I've even like gone on annual leave for a week and come back. I think in most agencies, you might have to spend a whole day recovering from that, just getting through the sea of emails from colleagues, from clients. I've been off for a week before and come back and literally had like one or two sales emails that have come in and not had a single client email, which I think is absolutely astounding. Um, one of my biggest selling points, if you work for an agency and are thinking of venturing out, is it's the difference between the most stressful work environment and absolute serenity. I haven't had a stressful day at work for 5 years, which for me, having worked for a couple of stressful agencies is a huge selling point.
Yeah, and that really you lead
So
to
yeah,
a
benefits for me. But sorry, yeah, we were talking about benefits to the client. Yeah, just that efficiency of just one person to contact, one person, who they learn to trust. I think that's a big selling point from a client point of view.
yeah, that definitely. And you lead to the point of conversation when you're thinking about this from a small business perspective. I want my listeners to hear the comment about the trained customers, and where that goes is you set the expectations for the customers that you can deliver on. Because if you start to respond to emails in the middle of the night, you start to respond to text messages and things like that, that will overrun your life. And that's not the hard thing about today's day and age is that we've kind of been grown up into this immediate gratification thing where we think we have to respond to the text message or we have to respond to Facebook message or the email with the second we get it. And that's not actually what people are expecting. People are expecting you to respond, but on your terms, because they're slowly documenting in the back of their mind how that's telling them how to treat you. And if you were responding within minutes, it is definitely a what they're saying. Oh, well, I'm going to get a response within minutes. I can send him this note real quick. Where if you respond later. So make sure to think about that, listeners, as you're going through this to process setting expectations for your customers is a big part of a customer journey. What has been a project that you've worked on in the last 5 years with your agency? One that's really, truly given you an inspiration, and it's that project that you're like, oh, this is exactly why I decided to go out on my own.
Well, this isn't the most exciting answer, but I've had one client where we had particularly good results. They were probably my largest client, as in I was doing a little bit of everything for them. And in the space of a year, we pretty much doubled the size of their sales pipeline. Um, that was just a good example of marketing doing its thing, complementing sales, and driving in an additional 50% worth of potential clients. So that's a slightly sort of clinical and unexciting answer. But if you're passionate about, you know, the efficacy of being a marketeer, then yeah, that's and I suppose that stands out for me because you'd think that digital marketing is all about results, and I think there's a degree to which that's a sensible approach. But I just seem to have the vast majority of my clients, they're really disinterested in data and in how many extra web visitors they're getting, how many extra sales they're getting. Most of them just seem to want high quality content to be published on their websites, to go out on their social channels. I think really partly to be sort of ticking necessary boxes, partly to be embellishing their brands with sort of high quality, windows into who they are. I have one client in that 10 clients who I do a quarterly report for. And yeah, all the others, they're really quite disinterested, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I think, potentially that has worked in my favor because I'm not stressed out about getting certain SEO results, certain this, that, or the other, X amount of engagement on LinkedIn or whatever. Not to say that, sometimes that can really be in your favor if you're doing a good job and can demonstrate that. Um, but yeah, most of my clients, they're just looking for high quality content output. But just with that, you know, being an efficacious digital marketer, that one client who we doubled their sales pipeline, that was a nice moment.
Yeah, that is definitely a critical part of and a feel good thing of like, hey, this is working amazing. Joshua, it has been such a great conversation. How about we jump into a little bit of the lightning round?
Sure. All right.
Okay, questions aren't too hard to start. Coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Cats or dogs?
dogs.
Favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Um, well, my favorite phrase would be some song lyrics which go, "Bless the weather that brought you to me, curse the storm that takes you away." That's a bit of John Martin.
Yeah, very good song.
I want to get a tattoo one day. Sorry, that was too long-winded.
No, you're good. You're good. Favorite movie or streaming series that you love?
um, hmm, well, do you know what? I've given up TV recently, so
That
controversial answer, but I'm actually enjoying having no TV in my life at the moment.
I don't disagree with that sentiment at all. I don't, we watch some movies, but we're a Disney family over here, but that's only usually as a family and whatnot. I'd much rather read a book or
Mm.
focus on the business as for myself. And there, speaking of books, one book that has influenced your life the most.
Um, the Bible.
Very good. Very good. The biggest obstacle you've had to overcome and one lesson you've learned from it.
Well, part of the reason why I ventured out is because I lost my job. And I lost my job twice in a row, um, uh, uh, which sort of thrust me into this point where I thought, okay, well, let's try this dream I was, putting on the back burner. I thought, let's try this now. So I suppose the lesson is maybe challenge yourself to have a go at venturing out and pursuing your dreams early.
There you go. Pursue your dreams early and venture out if as the discussion. Joshua, how would our listeners be able to get a hold of you or if they want to collaborate with you or work with you?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear from anybody. The best thing would be to go to my website. Shall I read it out?
Yes, please.
So www.jpinkmarketing.com.
There you go, everybody. You've heard it that jpinkmarketing.com is the best way to get a hold of Joshua and reach out. That information the link will be in the show notes. It'll be on in the description if you are watching this on YouTube. Joshua, it has been such a fantastic conversation today. I love getting to learn more about you and how your progression through the pandemic and all of the different challenges that you've got and your just true sereneness that you have decided that you have come into with these clients and where you're going. You're definitely on the journey that is a lot of small business owners want to be on and how they might be able to achieve that. So thank you for being on the Small Business Breakthrough. And listeners out there, until next time.